y'all could just give a little clap in for Miss Kayla. Alrighty, so they're going to go through their presentation. We're going to have a little Q&A, and then we're going to have a demo on one of my eyes. Cool? Alright.
How are you? My name's Kayla, obviously, she, her. I'm a lash artist and I'm an ex-photographer, now turned back into photography a little bit, doing some aesthetic stuff. I'm from Oklahoma and I just came here about a year and a half ago, so got my license reciprocated and everything. So I currently work at Confetti Beauty Bar, if you're familiar with that. It's over by the downtown airport. They do like spray tans, facials, you know, brows, stuff like that. But I am an esthetician. Yeah, I'm really curious if any of you so far, raise your hand if you've ever played or touched with eyelash extensions. Okay, so quite a few of you have. Do any of you want to go out into the world and specifically do lash extensions? If you want to raise your hand. Okay, awesome. So only a few. Well, the world of aesthetics and beauty needs lash artists, and this is not to like try to change you over and win you over into doing it. It's just to give you a better idea of what is kind of included. The good news is that there is a huge community of lash artists online that you can always like gather information, talk to people. The intricacies of lash extensions, there is YouTube videos, Instagram, like TikTok, everything is blown up with the information that you can find about lash extensions. But all of that to say is that all of the information can be found. So if you feel confused, if you feel kind of like put off from lashes because it seems a little too tedious, how do you actually do it effectively, make it last, make it look good? All of that information is accessible. And yeah, so I'm here to present to you some of my backstory, how I got into this, and then I'll actually talk to you guys about how to a little bit, and this will be just barely grazing the surface of what you can achieve with lash extensions. And the education is, you know, worlds and worlds big of all the things that you can, you know, do with lash extensions. And I know that she's probably talked to you a little bit about, like, nowadays there's holographic lash extensions that have come out, glitter lash extensions, metallics, color, all of that is, you know, something that you can do. But yeah, let's get started. I began my photography career actually at 13 years old, and I've always been a creative, an artist. If you have a similar story, you've probably always done art or you were a drawer, but I was that person where I did it all the way until my mid-20s, where I did pretty much every kind of photography you can imagine. I did weddings, births, engagements, babies. I loved photographing women. That was my absolute favorite thing to do because I loved the connection, the genuine, you know, one-on-one that you get with somebody. But also when you can turn them around and show them in the mirror, this is exactly how I see you. This is how the world sees you. We're gonna look at you like, you know, as you are, not the parts of you. And so taking with that mindset of like, I really love working with women, I started doing makeup for my photography sessions. And so that just elevated the service. And again, I'm following this through line of my life of like, oh, I really love the art of transformation. So I ended up moving to Oklahoma City from my small town to the big city in 2015. And this is where I struggled to find work as a photographer. And I just kind of decided, well, since I'm already doing makeup, I really want to focus in on that. And so that's when I decided to go ahead and sign up for aesthetic school, which, by the way, I had no idea that aesthetics even existed because where I come from in my small town in Oklahoma, nobody ever said the word, no one knew what it was until I moved to OKC. I just thought Cosmo was a thing and that was it. So then I learned that, okay, I want to be an esthetician because I don't do hair. I'm not good at hair. I'm really bad at, you don't want me to touch your hair, but I can do makeup and all of that stuff all day long. So yeah, in 2017, I decided let's go ahead and officially close the chapter of my life with photography, and I'm going to move, you know, straight into makeup where I can focus on that because I thought in my mind in Oklahoma City of all places that I could make a living doing makeup, which it's really difficult. So I ended up working at Sephora for about a year, maybe a little more than that. But Sephora was a great place to, you know, get your hands dipped in the aesthetics world. You can kind of gauge what people want, what people like, how people like to look, and it always, you know, varies by your region. But anyways, working there was interesting because it kind of felt like a grocery store job where like you go in and you get a few hours and everybody's fighting for hours. Literally, that's what it felt like. So at first I probably had 30 hours a week, and then they slowly dropped me down to 20, and then I got like 10 hours a week. And slowly over time, they were making my paychecks like, I don't know, $250 every 2 weeks. And I was like, well, this is ridiculous, but I really wanted to focus on makeup. I really wanted this to be my life. I wanted to immerse myself in it, but you know what? It doesn't last when you work at a store that doesn't want to work you. So remember, at this time, I'm going to aesthetic school at the same time. And yeah, so then after I graduated aesthetic school, which was about 2017, I went ahead and I did not do commission at all. I was actually just like, I'm gonna go rent a room right away because I know that I can make $100 a week, which is what this place, that little blue picture is what it was before, and then I painted it white and gray, and I just like really wanted it to be my space. But I found this little hole in the wall place. It was $100 a week, which is probably unheard of in a lot of places. So I was like, I'm taking this, even though she was like, I want to say over 30 minutes away from where I lived, and then it was like another 30 minutes from my job. So then I did part-time work until I was able to go full-time at this place, and I did that for about a year. But yeah, it takes time to build your clientele. It takes time to get your name out there. And with me being in a new city, I had no clue who anybody was. I literally was like, I'm just gonna take people and put them in my bed and put something on them because they can market me better than I can in a city that doesn't know my name. So that's exactly what I did, and I was able to, like I said, within a year, quit all my part-time jobs and just fully do that. I actually had an opportunity, before we move on, I had an opportunity to start working at another salon while I was working here that first year. So this is how I really gathered my clientele really quickly. Was I started working at a salon about an hour and a half away, and I would drive there every day. And then I would take my clients in the city I was in. So that was 3 days a week, and I worked 6 days a week to just get as many people as I could until I was fully I'm good. I'm really, really good. So that was interesting. I don't recommend all that driving, but if you can get the clientele and you can get that money, why not? And then after you get your stable clientele, you can figure out where do you want to put that. So I want to show you a little bit of my lash work that I started doing back then. And I want to tell the story really quick of how I decided to do this, because at first, I'm going to tell you, when I went to aesthetic school, I did not want to do lash extensions at all. I sat in your chair and I looked at my demonstrator back in the day. This was 2016, 17, they were showing all of us students a one-day presentation, and they let us, get up there and touch the tweezers and the clients get a feel for it. I was like, absolutely not. I don't want to do this. This seems too tedious. This is tiring. It's exhausting using my eyes. I don't have any interest in doing that whatsoever. So after I get out of school, you realize that there's an opportunity in the scope of your practices with your license. There's so many different things that you can try, you can touch, you can feel, until you realize, ooh, I actually do like this. A lot of people get into waxing that never ever thought they would ever like waxing. It's the same thing for lash extensions too. So unless you've actually tried it, I would say you really do need to try it just to see if it's something that you are compatible with, because some people mentally might not be compatible with it. And that's okay. Maybe you don't have the patience, but if you do have the patience and you want to see that thing through, it's really, really amazing. So here's some of my lash work. I on a whim, decided I'm going to take the last $100 to my name that I had from I was working at this call center, and I remember I was like, I hate this job, I hate these people, I want to just do this all the time. And I was practicing on people, but I took the last $100 that I had and I bought a kit of a bunch of lash products, and then that's where I started doing this. Started taking all the models, taking all the clients, as many people as I could, until when you practice and practice and practice, you can't help but to get better at it. And that's with anything that you do in life, let alone a skill. And that is the same thing with lash extensions. So although this doesn't look bad necessarily on the left, that was my first attempt at a volume set, maybe my second or third attempt at a volume set. So not quite there. This is me probably only doing lashes for a few months, period. Yeah, so once you start getting into the aesthetics world, you start pouring yourself in, find and attend little events here and there. You can meet so many people. I know that sounds like a dumb thing to say, but it really is true. When you go to events, whether they're Cosmo Aesthetics, like any kind of beauty show, it opens you up to meeting people, networking, meeting brand owners, getting the inside scoop in a lot of places that you would not have access to at all in any other way. So if you want to, let's say, eventually work for a brand, if you want to do hair and you want to take it seriously, maybe you want to be an artist for a brand specifically because you're like, I love this product so much, why don't you get in front of them? Why don't you go to an event that they're going to be at and you can talk to the owner because they will most likely be there, and you can introduce yourself literally to these people and they will give you the opportunity first before someone else. So that's why I recommend going to these places, not necessarily to win something or benefit in that way, but you can't help but to benefit from going to things like that. And actually that girl in the middle is who was the salon owner for the other place that I traveled to. And I was traveling back and forth to her salon 3 days a week for 2 years until I decided I'm just gonna do Oklahoma City. Here's my second ever room that I opened for lash extensions. I absolutely had a must have. It has to be black, on the inside. I want it to be, as soon as you go in, it sucks out all the light. You can rest and be sleepy, and it was very comfortable. And every single person that walked in there was like, I love how dark it is. So I really love how that turned out. But I was here for 2 years, and this was in a little bit more of a upscale area for me. And when I moved here, it felt like everything kind of blossomed, because you'll see in the next chapter of my life kind of how things took off. So when I moved here, also I did want to mention, I don't want to make this all about money either, but I did tell you in the beginning that I made $250 at my last few paychecks at Sephora. And then I did other weird jobs, but that was my reference point. $250 a month, and then I started doing lashes, and I want you to kind of just take a guess of how much I started making a month after 8 months. Just say again? 32. It was about $3,600 a month. Yeah, so within 8 months, I was making $3,600 a month just from lashes. And I took a few makeup clients, but then at that point in time, I believe I just stopped doing everything else. I started doing just lashes. So you can, and that was not me working full time. That was not full time. So when I say these numbers, I also want you to remember that I'm not taking taxes out of that. I'm not paying myself yet. I'm not paying product yet or overhead. So that $3,600 a month has to be, thrown to wherever it needs to go. You save money, you put it wherever. But that's like the overarching ideas that you can make a lot of money. But you can make a lot of money, in any area that you want to. It depends on how you price it. And you price it for your time, and it has nothing to do with your value or worth. I know everybody says that, and it's kind of like one of those word things, but it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with how do you want to be paid for your time? How much time do you want to take off work a year, and pay yourself for that? If you say to yourself, I want to make $100,000 a year, all you have to do is the math, divide it down, make sure you're taking out money for taxes, and you can make $100,000 a year. It doesn't matter what anybody else has to say about it. You can absolutely do that. And you have to imagine at that point in time, I'm making a little bit more money. And so I'm able to, okay, let me go take a class. Because at this point, I still had not taken a class. I had taught myself. I had watched all the videos, and this is why I told you at the beginning, all that information is out there. And if you can't find the information, what you'll have to do is practice, trial and error until you figure it out, because you will be able to figure it out if you do it. So I'm making a little bit more money. I decided to take some advanced Russian courses by international trainers that they themselves have went all over the world to learn the art of lash extensions in an advanced methodology that has its own, I'm trying to think of the right word. They have their own methods that are different from what is the norm, because they're trying to do it in a different way that is let's just give you an example. Have you ever seen ballet? You've seen ballet. Have you ever seen Russian ballet? Okay, Russian ballet is just like that little bit step above. It's the same thing with everything. A lot of the Russian and Ukrainian culture is very competitive, and Balkan culture is very competitive. So they are the best of the best of the best of the best. And what they did is, I went to Miami for one, and I went to Laguna Beach for this one. But these were Russian trainers that had went, again, like overseas and learned all this stuff. So I learned from them, took all of that information home with me, and I was able to then again, I was already doing a fairly good job, but I was then already doing way more than what the other people in my area were able to achieve. And what I'm talking about is retention, not only like your retention with your lashes, but also how they look. Are they able to stay exactly the way that you made them, or are they collapsing into something else when the person leaves? And that's all stuff that you have to consider when you're doing it. So they taught me a lot, and I still use that today. Around this time as well, I started coming out with product. This tends to be the thing that a lot of lash artists discover, is that the lash industry, and especially with supplies, is I'm trying to think of the exact terminology. There's a business word that is basically the market for lash supplies is an open market, meaning that everybody, every normal person, mom, dad, cousin, sister, can go and start their own supply business like this. All you have to do is have a little bit of investment, whether that's $500, $1,000, $20,000. You can sell supplies. This does not just apply to lash extensions. This is for a lot of beauty-oriented products. And so when you get into this area, you're going on Alibaba, and you're resourcing different manufacturers across the world. And it's not just Alibaba. You can find them on other places too. But there are entire manufacturers that they spend their time making products like this so that you can sell them. And as long as you have the right markup and you know how to run that part of your business, you can do that. For me, the reason why I did this was because, first of all, the tweezers were something that I was trying to resource, because a lot of tweezers that you buy when you start doing lash extensions, they are going to hurt your joints, because by default, most tweezers on the market for lash extensions are made to be a higher tension, meaning you are pressing way harder on that thing all day long with your fingers. Can you imagine just like crushing your fingers like this all day? A lot of lash artists do it. And I will say there's an ergonomic part of this presentation that I want to talk about, but the ergonomics is absolutely your top priority if you're going to have any longevity in a lash career at all. Same thing with hair, obviously, but with lash extensions, it's simple stuff like, how are you seated at your chair? What angle is your neck? How forward are you sitting? And a lot of people sit forward and crank their neck like that, and they end up hurting themselves so bad that they can't lash for more than 2 years. How are you supposed to have a long-term 10+ year career doing this if you can't pay attention to just those simple little things? Most people that go into this will never care about their ergonomics, and they'll always be in pain. And that's not normal. But I digress. So this, the plastic one on the top left, is a custom disposables unit that I made because I couldn't find one on the market that was like it. Basically, it's like, your disposables go in, and usually you have one flap, but I wanted it to have individual flaps so that it wasn't, every time you would open it, not everything is being exposed to the air particles. So I wanted it to be one singular cap that was pulled up. So basically what I did is I made drawings of what I wanted it to look like, and then I sent it to an acrylic manufacturer, and the acrylic manufacturer was able to create exactly what I had in my head, sold it to me, imported it, sold this completely out to people all over the US and a bunch of people overseas. So this is entirely possible. If it doesn't even have to be lash extensions, like I said, it can be literally any product in your mind that if it does exist or doesn't exist, you can put your name on it, you can put your branding on it, you can create anything from your mind. I want you to take that with you for the rest of your life, is that anything that you can imagine with that impulse in your brain, you can literally bring that out into the real world. So anything is possible artistically for you. The same thing with any kind of invention or any kind of product that doesn't already exist. That's why innovations and newness, the novelty, all of these new products that come onto the market, there is somebody behind that that took the time to be like, what's missing here? There has to be a solution. And there always is. And you might be that person that has the solution to a problem that exists in your industry. And so that's why I did this. And I sold products for about 2 years. That first left picture was like the first batch of things I sold. And then, you know, like a few months later, I'm selling more. And then this last one, I think I had launched some, I like did a restock of some tweezers. The tweezers that I resourced, I meant to finish that. My ADHD is so bad. The story about the tweezers, I was able to resource a tweezer company that was able to make the most slim, lightweight, non-tension tweezers that are out there at all, like that you can find at all. And those sold so well that it became such a well-known thing for me that's what I'm known for in the lash industry to this day, is the ability to bring out tweezers like that now there's people that are like, hey, I know you don't sell these anymore, but like I really need this. And that it keeps happening to me. So, but yeah, that day I remember I had done like a restock and there was like immediately 80 orders like within a day. And that was like $10,000 in a day. So this is stuff that is possible. Then again, I just want to warn you that the more money, the more problems, the more money, the more you have to deal with the stress of that. So you don't have to go into product sales if you don't want to. This is just an option for you if you ever desire to private label or do anything like that. Okay, so after I worked in that little salon for 2 years, I opened my own salon. So I kind of have done everything at this point, and a lot of it was because I had the internal pressure. And I'm just gonna speak for a lot of people that tend to define their value and worthiness in how much they can accomplish. You do not have to live your life in the way that like, I have to prove to everybody that I'm capable of doing this and that I can, you know, do something really worthy with myself. This ended up being something that I regretted. Because when I did it, I was like so excited. I poured all the money in. I took out every loan and credit card that you could imagine to open this so that I had all the furniture. I ordered that little custom desk from Florida, and that was like over $1,000. Like everything is just so expensive when you're opening something like that. So if you ever do want to open a salon, if that's one of your dreams, I don't want to ever, you know, deter you from seeking out that thing that you want to do, but also don't feel like you have to. Like do it because you want to, not because you feel like you have to prove something, because you will end up like pouring a lot of money into it. There are a lot of benefits, obviously, to having your own salon, and I know a lot of people that enjoy having their own salon, and it is enjoyable to a degree until all of the work sets in that you have to do. So I had 1,000 square foot of a warehouse. I had 1,000 square foot of the main area where there was a bunch of rooms and a hallway, and it was like the perfect setup. The image in my mind of manifesting the exact salon, this was literally it. And it was a great location. I had an assistant. I was able to pay $15 an hour. Pretty much everything that you can imagine, like I was able to do here. I was able to do all of my fulfillment, my shipping. I rented to people, and I also had this back area that I turned into a training room. It was like the perfect size. I painted it, you know, redid the floors. But yeah, it was a very expensive thing to do, but it is something that I think a lot of people get into not knowing how much work it is. So that's just, you know, like a soft warning that if you get into it, it's hard. It's very, very hard, but you can do it if it's your dream. So don't let me deter your passion. So when I opened this salon, and I was there for a couple years, I taught a lot of students. Even before this, before I got this salon, I was teaching some students. You know, the occasional person will come in and say, will you teach me? It's really awesome to be able to work with people in this capacity, but the work does not stop when you take a certification. The work does not stop when you take a class or when you get handed that piece of paper. The work begins when you get that piece of paper, because then you have to go and take all that knowledge and apply yourself. I think the number one thing that I would love to tell students of lash extensions is that if you are not an initiator, if you're not motivated to like go sit down and practice on your own and be willing to cry sometimes and be willing to be frustrated, then maybe lash extensions might not be a good fit, because it takes so much dedicated, persistent, consistent practice like anything else, and there's a huge learning curve. So yes, I taught a lot of students, and that was really, really fabulous. I want to show you a little bit of my work in the last few years and kind of how it's turned out. I did not start getting comfortable with the application of lash extensions until I was probably about a year in, but I did not feel good about my work at all until about 3 years. So that's me doing lash extensions almost every day and not feeling 100%, because I was comparing myself, of course. You know, you compare yourself to the other people online that you're seeing. And so I want to show you what I was focused on in the beginning. So 2020 and 2021, I was focused on Russian effects. The difference between Russian, if you ever hear that term, I've heard people tell me that Russian is a made up thing, that Russian lashes is a gimmick. I've heard that it is just a marketing ploy. Russian lashes is not a marketing ploy. It is actually a very specific type of lash extension application that requires very specific technique and layering. What I mean by layering is, if you can see on the right side, I'm doing more of the textured sets, whereas the left side, I'm doing a little bit more even sets across the top line of the artwork. So you can see the top line is a little more straight, whereas these are a little more textured. So I focus so much on the blacking out top line being perfect in the beginning of my career that, you know, over the years I had to get used to how to create texture, because this is the type of work that people want to see. That's what they want on their eyes. They don't want the Russian effect. They want the textured effect, which is more American. So it's technically called American volume when you have mega volume, because Americans were some of the first to use the smaller diameters that have to be used in this effect. I hope that you can see a little bit of like how the work has transformed over time. And also 2026, 2025, these are some of the first times I'm using all color in my sets, because if you have noticed in the last few years how color lash extensions have become more at the forefront of what you see in the lash extension world or in beauty. Color lashes are becoming really, really big, because there are several brands that are now coming out in the US, whereas they didn't exist before. There was a lot of color lash people, like brands overseas, that were selling them, but over the last few years they started to come here, and now that's why you start to see it like kind of transform the landscape of like online culture, like imagery that you see, videos, all of that changes. Beauty trends are changing. Okay, so after I had my salon and decided to close it, I went ahead and started working for a really, I would say she was like a medium-sized lash brand based in Vegas. She found me online through my Instagram. So all this time that I am a lash artist, I'm focusing a lot of my energy on building up the people in my town seeing me, like at the community level in Oklahoma City, and being found by clients, but also I was being found by a lot of people online that were other lash artists, lash brands. Pretty much every single major lash brand was following me. And so you're being seen by these people that are actively needing you. They want you to help them in some way. At least she did for me. She saw me and she kind of attached to me and she was like, hey, can you help me? It first started out with her website. I redid her website because I have previous experience with graphic design, photography, etc. So I helped her with her website, and she was like, well, why don't you just join the team? And I was like, well, I do want to close my, my salon and everything. So it worked out perfectly. I was able to shut all that down because I was kind of burnt out on it anyway. I was working so much, pretty much 7 days a week, and I was working from the moment I woke up until the moment I put my head down, to sleep at night. So that's why I was burnt out, and I was kind of ready to just like take a load off. I want to ease my labor. I want to ease the amount of time that I'm taking to do stuff. And also I kind of was just sick of seeing lash clients, having to ship stuff all day. It was a lot. So her opportunity to work for her and work from home, I don't have to see clients anymore. Well, heck yeah, I'm gonna take that opportunity. So that's what I did. And she hired me as a creative director, in which I was was in charge of everything visual that you can imagine. Emails, social media, videos, content, photography, product photography. I rebranded all of her products completely. We also worked together to find new manufacturers to replace some that, she had some really, really bad lash trays that I just hated. So we worked together to bring in new manufacturers. So this is an incredible amount of work and detailed stuff that only a lash artist would be able to do. So with my experience, with the online experience, with running the business and everything included, she trusted me to basically take over for her. She took a back seat and let me do everything for the business, everything. And I became the face of the business. But then 2 years later, we had our disagreements, and of course we have to part ways, which brings us to today, basically. So now I'm working and living in Greenville. I work at Confetti. We just moved here a year and a half ago because my boyfriend's family's from here and his dad was about to pass away. So, and I wanted to get out of Oklahoma anyway, so here we are. I've got my license, I already told you guys about that, but I was able to perfectly fit my timeline to work at Confetti, after quitting that place. So, any questions so far? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was just writing them down actually.
Sure.
So what kind of, because I know you mentioned that you had touched subject or touched base on like graphic design
Mhm.
and photography before stepping into beauty. What other types of, like little niches like graphic design and things like that, were you surprised you had to kind of well-round to be where you are today?
Well, I think everybody's journey is so unique that you can't expect everybody to have that background with that creativity. So I would say I was surprised that, of course, now I get to use my photography, and basically what you will have to have as a lash artist or a Cosmo or anything is you have to be your own photographer, you have to be your own videographer, you kind of have to learn the basics of lighting, of how to market yourself, what are the types of posts that I make online, how do I reach clientele. So you kind of have to become a professional marketer, and solicit yourself. Not everybody's comfortable doing that either. Not everybody's comfortable dipping their toes into I need to photograph my client now. I have people that are so scared to even just take a photo of their client laying on the table. They don't even take any pictures of their lash work at all. They're just like, oh, you just go ahead and leave. Oh, sorry, I didn't get a picture. And I'm like, well, why? Now you can't sell yourself. You literally can't post it online, nothing. And so many people do that. I think the best advice that I can give you about just to sum that up is you guys cannot ever get to a point in your life where you are comfortable with all the information that you have and you're just like, yep, I'm done learning. You cannot be like that when it comes to business, especially. If you're an entrepreneur, if you are a creative, you have to have the right balance with your art where you cannot get to that point where you're burnt out from it because you didn't do it the right way to make money. For example, a big reason why I stopped doing photography was because I wasn't making money and I was begging people. Let me just take your photo. I was in a new city. Let me just take your photos, please. And I couldn't find anybody that would pay me. I no longer had a good balance with my art. You have to find that perfect balance. So that's why I love lash extensions too, and I needed to say this as well, is that lash extensions is pretty cool because you can build up a clientele very fast. You can build up a clientele, within that first year. They're coming to see you every 2 to 3 weeks loyal, on the dot every 2 to 3 weeks. That's so much faster than you getting a client once every 6 months, once every 4 months, maybe once a year they might come back. So this is a really cool opportunity, and you cannot ever be sufficed with as much information you have. You have to always be teachable, always be willing to initiate something new that you've never tried before, which is being open to learning new skills that might help you with this. So it's anything digital, anything that is networking in person. You also don't forget about your traditional methods of meeting people, of your circles, and a lot of my building clientele was just putting it on anybody and everybody, my coworkers, my family, friends, everybody. So but until you get there, I mean, you just won't know. It's just be able to have all of those spokes in your wheel be a different skill. And everybody's gonna have different skills that will apply to this. So, but any other questions? I hope I was, I know I rambled, but yeah. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, sure.
Do you still do Lash certification classes?
I do. I don't know the technical legality of teaching you necessarily in the state, but I do. I do teach classes, yeah. In different states, they have different like instructors protocols for like just simply, you know, if I was to sit down and show you. So different states have different legalities, but I would just have to check here before I teach anybody. Yeah. We can talk about the basics of lash extensions, enough with my story, and I'm gonna just show you guys. It's again, it's like just grazing the surface of all of the education that's out there. Good so far? Okay. Here's some basics. So classic fiber is an individual fiber. It is one singular piece. A volume fan is anything that has multiple fiber. When you look at a classic fan, this piece of fiber is usually thicker than your volume fan pieces. The volume fan individual pieces are smaller diameter. So the more pieces on a fan that you have to do a smaller diameter, otherwise it gets really heavy. So if I did 2 of the classic on this person, that would be extremely heavy on that singular lash. So, and we'll talk a little bit about sizing and stuff and what's recommended on people in a second. I do want to just really quickly show you guys about how you can do comfort options for your clients. Of course, I use all of these except the lash pillow. The leg wedge or bolster is extremely vital, because if you have somebody on this flat bed and they have no way to take that pressure off their lower back to at least, you know, curve their legs, I'm telling you, even just on a surface like this, if a client's laying here for more than an hour, they're not going to be happy with you. So you want to make this as comfortable as humanly possible. I don't particularly think I've ever used these types of beds like for my lashes. I've always used like a massage table, but when you get a massage table, now you're like, well, if I put stuff on top of it, how does it remain clean? There are wipeable surfaces that you can put on top that have spandex on the side. And so that's how I actually put together my whole thing, is I would have a mattress topper that is like a 3 or 4 inch memory foam top, so that it goes all the way across. You can cut it to the size. I get like a twin size bed one, and they're usually like $80 or less. So yeah, you get one of those. This guy right here is like one of your bigger ones. I love those because it completely elevates their legs, takes all the pressure off of their lower back. I myself have a lower back injury, so if you have someone like that or a heavier set client, you are going to have problems with their lower back here if you have this completely flat. The lash pillows, completely optional. You do not have to use a lash pillow if you don't want to. In fact, some people that use lash pillows, like me, I think that they can be kind of annoying because the clients tend to be away from you. You want them to be as close to your head as possible, basically touching you right here in your chest with their face. But if you have one of these, it's a lot harder to force them to be up by you. So yeah, that's just one way that you can make them comfortable. Let's talk about the glue really quick. When I took my first ever, it was basically a demonstration that they gave us for my class a long time ago. I remember her showing us the glue and she's like, all glues are exactly the same. No, they are not. So lash glues are extremely different. Every single brand that you buy from, if they are 2 different brands, they are 2 different glues. The main differences in glues is going to be their drying time based on the composition of their, let's say, the ratio of ingredients. So they are cyanoacrylate based, which means that they require humidity from the air. So you have to have humidity for cyanoacrylate based. And these particular glues, cyanoacrylate means that it is flammable if it touches anything cotton. So if it is I don't know, like a cotton round or, cotton little things that you put around the eye. If you get glue on something like that, smoke can come out. I'm sure you've seen those little videos. This never poses any kind of risk to your client whatsoever because you shouldn't be using any kind of cotton stuff around their eyes when you're doing lash extensions. But this is just something to take note. They can give chemical burns to the mucous membranes. Now there is a little bit of a back and forth in the community about chemical burns per se, that terminology. The main thing that you need to remember about chemical burns to mucous membranes is if your client's eyes are even slightly open to the point where the sclera is showing where the mucous membrane is, that is what is exposed to the fumes that will come out of your glue, and that is the thing that is sucking all the humidity out of the eye. So all of that wetness, it's sucking it all out and forcing it to be completely dry, which will make your eyes sensitized, red, and irritated. If you expose your client to that for, let's say, 2 to 3 hours straight, you're going to have a ton of redness and what will feel like a bruise to the eye. And so that's how clients will report back to you, hey, my eye is completely bloodshot. It feels like there's something scratching my eye. It's because you have allowed the fumes to pull all that, it's making the eye completely dry for a long period of time. And so the best way to deal with those things is to make sure that that client keeps their eyes hydrated. You as an esthetician or a cosmo can't straight up tell them, hey, you should use this. You should use this. I tell them vaguely, please keep your eyes hydrated if you have eye drops. I will vaguely tell them that's the best that you can do to make sure that that heals. Because otherwise, when they go to the doctor and they're like, hey, I have this problem with my eye, the doctor's gonna be like, here's some eye drops that'll keep your eyes hydrated. Let it heal. That's all that they're gonna do. So if you ever run into that, you just have to have the best communication with your client possible and have that open door to talk to them. Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a cornea on this eye
Mm-hmm.
due to an injury.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be kind of like a contraindication
No.
for lashes?
No, I don't think so because, the eye being completely closed, there are people that get surgeries or have all kinds of things with their eyes all the time, but as long as you're completely healed, there's no open wound. A lot of people also get scared to wear their contacts. It's completely okay to wear your contacts. As long as the eye is closed, you should be fine. Yeah, no worries. So yeah, the fumes can be toxic if you have prolonged inhalation and exposure. This is due to, there is a very, very, very small amount of formaldehyde that will come out of the fume of the glue. However, there are studies that have been done overseas, like in Europe, where they do a lot more testing and grading and making sure that everything is healthy for people. They do that way more than over here. So what they have deemed, and I can always get you the studies on this, but they say that the amount of formaldehyde that is in these glues is no more than what you will normally find in any of your cleaning products and such and such. So that's why they deem it safe as long as it is used in small amounts. So cyanoacrylate-based glues are also plastic, basically. It is the same PMMA as nails. It's the same thing. It turns into a hardened piece of plastic that then is on your eye until it falls off. The same thing if it hits your skin, peels off. That's why it is safe for people to use around your skin and eyes. And it is not an industrial-based one. There's all kinds of grades of these cyanoacrylate. The one that we use is very, very minimal as far as being around. They use it on wounds too. They used it on my gallbladder. When they cut you open at the doctor, they use cyanoacrylate-based glues to close you up if you have a cut. So, okay, used in many medical environments, yep, sealing small wounds, plasticizes. Yeah, so as long as it hits water or hits humidity, it's going to plasticize. It's gonna turn into a hard as rock piece of plastic. All right, another thing about brand selection and buying things, you do not have to be completely loyal to a brand if you don't want to be. I think a lot of people get confused that oh, well, I took this one class and they told me that I can only use their stuff. Well, that's incorrect. You do not have to do that. You could buy from whoever you want, unless there's a brand that's hey, we want you to take our course before you buy our stuff. That is a thing that can sometimes happen, but otherwise, most of these brands, you can just go on their website and buy it as a normal person. You do not have to show your license. You don't have to do anything like that. You can just simply buy the stuff. And I would highly encourage you to try out different products from different people, because what you'll find is if you buy from this brand the lash trays but you hate their glue, you might find another brand over here that you love their glue and you hate their lash trays, because everybody's going to have different stuff across the board from all these different manufacturers, because they're importing it from different places, from different factories all the time. Every brand's products will be different. Yes, so the quality of the products is going to be different across the board too. And when we talk about any kind of lashes, this is volume lashes, but when any kind of lashes, any kind of tweezers, what's going to fit you and your needs is personal to you. It's not going to work for the next person sitting next to you. The same thing with preferential technique. There's no one technique of doing lashes that is across the board what you have to do. You can do it however you want, and it's going to be your preference. Let me take a drink. I can already hear my voice. And last thing on here is that the color of lashes, like let's just talk about like a black normal lash extension. These lash extensions will have different default color. I really wanted to pass around the room. If you guys want to feel, I'm just gonna pass maybe these so they can feel those, and then maybe this one too, like a color one, just so they can see, and you can open it and feel these if you want. This is what the fiber is made out of. It's made out of polyester and a PBT, which is a thermoplastic. These plastics are manipulated. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, yeah.
I have a question. Like when you first started, did you have trouble with like your hand shaking?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How did you like get control of it?
So the main thing is like relaxing. If you have a hard time relaxing, or the other thing is you have to stabilize yourself with different points. Stabilize with your elbows, stabilize with your wrist here on the face. You can also stabilize when you're placing the tweezer and you're about to work on them. You can use that tweezer to also stabilize on their face. So you have to have like multiple points of stabilization for your hands and your arms. And that will definitely help, but also relaxing, slow breathing. If you are anxious, if you are having a bad day, it's gonna affect the way that you lash. I thought I saw a question. Yeah?
I noticed you said you were ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Also ADHD, been diagnosed with since I was very young.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot more serious as I've gotten older.
Mhm.
Has that played a pretty big role in how you kept yourself relaxed? Because it's hard to
This is a really good question, because having ADHD, if you're not familiar with ADHD, and there's 3 different types of ADHD. The main one that most people are familiar with is hyperactivity. Hyperactivity meaning that you're easily distracted, but also you deal with executive dysfunction, meaning that you have problems doing things that you're supposed to do, and you procrastinate, and you're also able to hyperfixate, which hyperfixation takes over your life and then ruins all the things that you're supposed to do. Yeah. With ADHD, it is a hidden disability, and it is my theory that like over half the population have it, and most people are undiagnosed. And that's just my theory. But basically, with ADHD, the thing that with any kind of beauty industry thing, I would say as long as you are doing something that interests you, if you are a detailed person and you like to see something through, I will say that doing lashes for me surprised me because it kept my attention. It's kind of like, it's similar to crocheting.
Yeah.
You just sit there and you do it, and your brain goes on autopilot, and you have to kind of, also with ADHD, you have to have multiple layers of stimulation at all times. So if you don't have if you're not verbally stimulated, you have to have a hearing, and you have to have a visual, or you have to have something with your hands. There has to be multiple stimuli. So for me, what I do is when I'm lashing, that's not enough. I have to be listening, or I have to, so I put on something like a podcast, listening to music. I did that for 2 years and I got sick of it. Turn on like an audiobook, or make people listen to podcasts. Like that way your brain is following something through, your hands are on autopilot. Your day is going to go by so fast.
I'm learning now how to use that like hyper focus
Mm-hmm.
more as a tool in my life,
Yeah.
rather than for the most part it like very detrimental.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, so the other really cool thing about doing lashes for me, and just having, like when you get a full clientele in anything, when you get that full clientele, your routine is going to start to form. Where, okay, I have to wake up at this time, I go to work 10 o'clock, I'll be off by 6 or 7, and then I go home. But your routine is really what's gonna help you structure your ADHD a lot better too, because that's the thing that we're missing the most of. But yes, it really works. It works well, surprisingly. And I think the ADHD is almost a superpower in that aspect, because not only am I so hyperfixated, or hyper-focused, hyperfixated, like I am detailed. I take my time. I feel like the ADHD is almost like a passion motivator. Like it makes people very impulsive and passionate. So if you guys are still passing around the lashes, where's it at? Okay, cool. Just keep passing that around. Feel it, see it. The big box that you're seeing is pre-mades. These are pre-made fans that are volume. Those are technically like a mega volume, so you'll have like a way more darkness in your set, versus the little trays are ones that you can either make fans or you can use to create like individual pieces too. Lash fiber is going to come in different curls, thicknesses, and lengths. You have classic diameter that is anything below a 0.10 millimeter. These are 0.10 of a millimeter. Very, 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 very tiny. You have to use a very special piece of equipment that's probably like $1,000 to even like measure, because these are so tiny. Classic diameter is very thick. So these numbers, the 0.10 is thick. Volume diameters is anything less than 0.10. So over here, I don't know if you can see it on this, yeah. So it starts at 0.03 is your smallest. You do have even smaller, like at a 0.02. These are used for mega volume, 0.05, mega volume. As you go down this, you're getting thicker. 0.06 is a very standard Russian diameter that can make volume. 0.07 is another Russian volume diameter. 0.10 is what volume lashes was invented on. 0.10 overseas in Russia, there was 2 women that invented volume lashes. They used 0.10 because that's all that was available at the time, and that was all that was in manufacturing at that time. So everything below that has come in the last 15 years. And everything that we have now with lash extensions exists now because of the last 15 years of development that they've done in engineering overseas. Okay, so 0.12, 15, and 18 are your most standard, classic, individual pieces. And anything above a 0.18 is pretty much by standard not used anymore, because these are extremely thick, to the point where these by default putting on anybody is going to be damaging. There are some clients that will have very thick natural lashes that can handle weight like a 0.20, but it's not recommended. 0.20 is just simply not recommended anymore. If you see that being sold, just look away. Don't buy that one. Please buy anything 0.18, 15, and 12 for your classic. 0.12 is like a very dainty, natural kind of look. 0.15 is very standard for classic, and 0.18 is like that's a thick one. Lengths can go from anywhere. I've seen 4 millimeter all the way up to 30 millimeter. But 30 millimeters is not typically sold by most brands. Sometimes you can get like 20, 25, millimeter, but again, these are extremely long lengths. I will say most of your clients that come into you, most of them will ask for something no more than a 12 or a 13. But then again, most clients do not know what lengths they're getting, and they probably shouldn't know unless they are lash artists themselves. So if a client comes in and says, I want a 12, you're gonna be like, okay, well, who are you? Like, what's your background? Because I need to know. But yeah, so when you're putting lengths on people, the more lengths that you do, the more of a slope and more of a shape that you can create. You can do multiple lengths throughout the set to create texture, or you can just do an all over short set. But 4 and 5 millimeter sets is extremely, extremely short. We didn't even talk about mega volume. So mega volume diameters, yeah, so it's like a 0.03, 0.05. Mega volume is only when you are in these diameters. You can create mega volume like looks using other ones, but this is the standard as of right now. Oh yeah, let's talk about curls. So curls, the main ones that you are gonna see being sold online are anything from B, C, CC, D. Those are very standard. If they go above and beyond and they have a little bit more, they will have a U, L, L plus. The differences between these is basic. I'm trying to decide if I want to stand or not, but basically, the higher up curl on this graph, the lower of a slope that it is, like the lower of a curl. So when you go to a C, that's very natural. When you go to a CC, it's a little bit more. And when you go to a D, it's basically backwards. The D is going to be your one that is the most curly. So if you're wondering, well, do I customize based on eye shape, face shape, the way that the lash is growing? Yes, all of the above. So we choose curls strategically to create different effects stylistically, but also how are we going to determine this client's shape? It's going to depend on their natural assets. Okay, cool, because we're almost done with this too, and we can do the demo. All right. You have probably, before I go to this, you've probably heard of lash extensions by default being damaging, but I really want to talk to you about that myth right now and bust that for you. Is that, does every single person that uses bleach, are they damaging hair and completely destroying hair? Completely destroying it? No. So you mean to tell me that bleach doesn't have to destroy hair? Lash extensions do not have to destroy the lash line or cause damage if the person doing it is doing right by the client and is applying it correctly. So as long as lashes are, well, we can talk about it. You're never gonna glue two lashes together ever, 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 including baby lashes that look like peach fuzz. Because when you look into the lash line, you're gonna see all kinds of varying lengths. Sometimes two hairs can grow out of the same hole. Sometimes lashes are so close together growing that you can't separate them. What are you going to do about that? Are you going to glue those two together? No, because the rule is you're never going to glue those together. You're going to double check that everything is isolated before that person leaves and before that you move forward to the next lash. Because when you have two lashes that are near each other that get glued together, this is what happens. The reason why people say lashes are hurtful or they destroy your lashes is because when you have the hair that is, you have two different hairs that are growing at different rates of time. They're glued together. This one's wanting to grow. This one's in a pause stage. It's in its dormant stage. You're pulling on this one that wants to grow. Now you're causing traction alopecia. You are causing this hair to biologically stress to the point where maybe it might start growing different. It might lose its color. It might miniaturize. It might change biologically because you applied that foreign object that's not letting it grow exactly how it's supposed to. So to prevent that, you literally just make sure nothing is sticking together. You double check your work, and it's that simple. Now this is harder to do as a beginner because you're not seeing everything you're supposed to, you're practicing. It is to be expected that you are gonna have some mess ups every once in a while, and I would say even my clients that come every 2 to 3 weeks now, every once in a while you'll have a person that has a lash that, oh, I didn't see it, got connected, and we've created a lash that's kind of, hooked onto this one. So it's almost impossible to prevent, but it is preventable if you pay attention and if you take care of the client. The more lazy approach would be, I'm gonna just put it on there and whatever it is, just go. Do you think that's comfortable though? Do you think that's gonna be comfortable with the client? Because the client will feel that. They absolutely 100% of the time will feel every single one of those that is stuck together. So that's another reason why your work depends on how clean and precise it is, because that person probably won't come back if you have left them in pain. The same thing for the comfort. If the client is laying on your bed and you don't have it set up at all to be comfortable, are they gonna come back? Probably not, because it needs to be a very comfortable experience for them. Another thing on here for preventing lash damage is you're not ever gonna glue to the skin ever. You're gonna glue your false lash to the natural lash, but that's it. You can get close to the skin, and I'll show you the placement here in a sec, but you don't touch the skin, because again, if you are placing that glue on the skin and it's trying, the hair's trying to grow, but now it can't because it's being stuck to something, you cause the same problem that you did before. You want to, by standard, have about 1/2 millimeter. If you know what a millimeter looks like, it's very, very small, but about 1/2 to 1 millimeter is normal for the average beginner to place it like away from the skin. You are gonna use your best judgment when you apply lashes to your client and a safe weight for their natural lash based on what you know. And the only way that you're gonna know that is if you do trial and error, or I'm also gonna give you a chart here that you can look at of like the recommended weights and stuff. But the weight of the lash is dependent on how long is it that you're putting on them and what is the diameter, because all of that is going to add to the weight that applies to the natural lash. And that natural lash can only handle so much. When you look up data and like report, I think it's there was like a study that I found that said basically all of your eyelashes are able to carry about double their own weight. That is your standard. Your eyelash can hold double its own weight because of your hair's natural ability to hold water. So it's made to hold water. It's made to hold a little bit of extra weight on there. So that's why lash extensions also work over time, is because if you're not damaging your lashes in those initial, sessions, you can wear lashes for 10 years and have the same exact lashes that you walked in with. And this is undeniably the truth that we see across the board all over. And then you're gonna be paying attention to the continual health of your client's natural lashes at every appointment. So another thing that we do, probably as Cosmos you also do this with hair, is every time you see this one client, you are looking at what's their density. Do they have any specific marks? Do they have any wounds? Do they have anything that I need to be aware of? And the next time they come back, do they have the same density? Or are they losing hair? Is there any changes that I can see in their hair? Does this person have a bald spot that wasn't there before? This is all stuff that you're paying attention to over time with each client because you care. And so that's the same thing that you do with lash extensions. When that person comes in, I'm looking at their overall health, if there's any spots, but also the next time they come in, I can check, are there any hormonal changes happening to this person that they don't know about? Are there any, have they picked out their lashes that I can see, but they're gonna lie to me? Because I can see all of this stuff before they do, and I'm gonna see it way up close. But you're gonna watch their follicles, literally, time to time to time, to make sure that you are not hurting them, because you can also track the stress that you apply to their lashes. You can track in the changes to the color, the shape, the size, all of that. Okay, here's what the placement looks like. You can see just that little teeny tiny gap. That is the gap you're trying to leave between the false lash and the skin when you apply it. And that's just standard. Okay, so we were just talking about lash assessing. So this is what I do every single time a new client comes in. I always try to get a picture of their natural lashes just so I can see it and then have a place to track. I always have a reference. So if 10 months down the road, she's like, how are my lashes doing? Well, let me look at how they were before and let me look at them now so that we can look. So this is how I check clients when they come in, because this is also gonna affect how I lash them. You look at their overall integrity. You're going to look at how thick the actual hair is on their lash line. Some people have naturally more frail lashes and some people have naturally more thick lashes, some longer, some short. Now you can also see in some of these images how there's some sparseness on some, or some of them look cut. These are also things that you're looking for. You can ask your client, are you using, what is it called? The eyelash curlers, yes. Are you using eyelash curlers? When's the last time that you got a perm? You will be able to see all of these things, again, because it's gonna affect how you lash them. Are any areas sparse? Because when someone comes in and I see this, I'm gonna tell them what I see, because that communication and opening up that door to communication with your client is going to make them appreciate you a lot more, because most people don't. Most people do not sit there and tell them, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what your density looks like. Hey, I need to tell you this. Most people don't care to say that. So you're creating a relationship by doing all of these things, by being open with them. Are there any lashes that are slightly different color or lacking color? So you can oftentimes find a little lash in here, in the lash line, that is suffering from stress if you see changes in those color, or if it's starting to go down. And if the eyelashes naturally come out, but there's one that goes down, it might be something that they've always had genetically, or it could be a sign that this particular one was picked a lot or stressed a lot, but you will see changes in the way that they grow. Do the lashes look cut near the base? So yeah, this is all just basic stuff that you are looking for in your set, because in those areas where you do have more signs of stress, you might as well decide to put something a little lighter or a little less risky on those lashes so that you are protecting the integrity that's there. Glue dipping. So glue dipping is pretty simple. You are going to change your glue dots. Some people like to use the rings. I will say rings make it so that you are basically having it right next to your face, and it's also right next to your client's face. I'm just going to say that. You can do it any way that you want to do it, but some people really like it on their hand. I prefer to do it on the table that is right next to me, and I put the glue dot on a piece of tape so that I can change out that tape, throw it away. So what you can see in this photo is this glue dot is probably about 2 dollops placed onto one single dollop. This dollop is going to only last you so long because it is going to dry. You have to change that out every 20 to 30 minutes depending on what is your room humidity. If that glue dot is teeny tiny and you only decide to put like one little dollop on there, it will dry probably within 10-15 minutes, and that's it. You can't use too small of a dollop. When that dollop starts to dry around the edges, or it starts to get kind of gunky, any kind of change to the glue means that you are now risking the glue to not be applicable to the clients. We have to have viscous, fluid, nice and even glue all around the lash. You're only going to dip that fiber into the topmost portion here. Some people like to do it on the edge or the side, but what you're doing is you're breaking the dollop to make it even more vulnerable to being exposed to the humidity, and it's going to dry faster. So that's why you want to do it in the very middle here, where it's going to stay the most moist for the longest amount of time. You're dipping the fiber only 2 to 3 millimeters of length. This is about 2 to 3 millimeters right here, so that when you go to place it on the natural lash, you want to get as much exposure to the glue on the lash as possible, or as much connection as possible to the natural lash, so that it can have a better chance of staying longer. If you only dipped into the glue 1 teeny tiny millimeter and then put it on because you're too afraid to dip it in the glue for whatever reason, that 1 millimeter does not stand a chance. It's going to fall off way faster than if you do 2 to 3 millimeters. Now, if you do a classic lash, you could do even more. You can do 4 millimeters. You could maybe do 5. The more of a flush that you have with a natural lash, obviously you're going to have a better chance for them to actually glue together. All right, so what are the recommended diameters that you place on natural lashes? So I did not include anything with volume on this, because I'm just gonna assume that we're beginners here with extensions, and let's just talk about classic. So classic natural lashes. How do we know what to put on them? This is kind of your guide. You can take a picture or whatever, you know, if you have photographic memory, whatever. So you have thin, frail lashes. Somebody comes in, let's say they are much older. Let's say like it's a 75-year-old woman, and her lashes have over time maybe gotten a little thinner, maybe a little smaller. Someone with teeny tiny little lashes can only handle a little bit. So that's why you're going to get a false lash that is the diameter 0.10 or 0.12 and put that on them. The normal average lash on a person is going to you know, like you and me, like the average, you know, 25-year-old, 30-year-old person, they're going to have a genetically, you're going to have like a certain appearance and you'll be able to tell this is not a frail, fragile lash. You will be able to put on them something a little bit more. You can put on them a 0.10, 12, or 15. And the 15 is going to look very full and very pretty. If someone has very, very thick, obviously like huge, fat, natural lashes that you're just like, ugh, like blow me away with that, you can put all the way up to 0.18 on them and it will not hurt them at all. So these are the diameters that you can use on them. And let's talk about mapping really quick. And I probably have forgotten something, and I made this last night, and I was pulling actually from my, what is it called? I was pulling from some of my manuals to put in here and some of my other stuff. But this is a really great photo for you guys. If you are interested in lashes, like please, please, please take a picture of this, because I absolutely recommend this. Coming from my Russian background, and just in general, when you are working on inner corners, let's just look at this really quick. You're working on inner corners. Inner and outer corners are the most fragile lashes that you have on your eyes, because these tend to be smaller. They tend to be a little lighter than the main area of your eye, which is like that big, you mostly see those lashes in the front. The inner corner lashes can easily get blown out if you put something too heavy, and you might not even realize it's too heavy, but it's already too late when you've blown it out. These lashes tend to literally miniaturize and lose in their integrity simply by putting on a lash that is a little too long. You have to be very, very careful with these lashes, meaning that when you have a client come in and they obviously have little teeny tiny inner corners, I don't care if they've got full and luscious crazy lashes, I'm still gonna honor the inner corner. I'm still going to take care of those babies because I don't want that person to biologically lose their lashes. So these always taper. Taper means to go down in length. So you're going to slowly step down in lengths in your inner corner, meaning we can start at a 6 millimeter or a 7 millimeter on the inner corner. A lot of people in general in life, in the lash community, tend to use 9s, 10s. That is way too long, I'm just gonna tell you, because you're blowing out the inner corner. If you are using a very, 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 very light diameter, you might be able to balance it so you can use longer lengths, that's fine. Like if you, let's say Mega Volume. Mega Volume has very tiny diameters. You could go longer with those, but let's just say you're going the heaviest that you can. Do not blow out those inner corners. The main area of the lash line, you can pretty much play and have fun and do whatever. I always like to make everything step by step in length so that I'm not going from a 9 to a 12 to a 9. I like to step at 9, 10, 11, 12, 11, 10, 9. I'll show you here in a second. But this is just giving you a general idea. Your outer corners is the same thing. You want to make sure that you're not exceeding certain lengths so that you're also blowing those out. The general rule of thumb is I would never go above 7 on the inner and never go above 11 on the outer. Ever, ever, ever. Learn those rules, and then later when you get comfortable with it, you can break those rules. But for now, all right, here's some basic lash maps. I'm gonna give you 3 of the most universal lash maps that are out there. These are maps based on, again, 7 millimeter, 8 millimeter, 9 millimeter. These are millimeters of lengths. You can use any curl you want. These arrows are kind of showing you that you can kind of lay the lashes to be where you want them directionally, so you can also create different effects by way of the angle that you lay the lash. But yes, the rounded natural eye is the most like your natural eyelashes, the natural shape of your eyelashes. And the center of the eye, if it was right here, we are bringing the apex or the highest length just outside of the center of the eye, which does give a slight lifting effect to the eye. This is the open eye. If you can see through the middle here, we have the longest length apex around the central area, which is usually where like the iris is. So now we are opening the eye to be lifted in the center, and that's where all of our attention is gonna go when we look at that person. Cat eye, we can see that everything directionally is pointed to the outer. We start with a very short inner corner. You have to step to get to a cat eye, and the cat eye has to be on the outermost area here But again, we know our rule of the outer corner. We don't ever go above an 11, which means that I have to taper down on the ends. Now, the reason for this as well is because when you're looking at the eye here, if you look straight at me, you're not going to see the eyelashes that are over here that actually go on the side of my eye. These lashes are what we are tapering down so that the longest length actually is not on the outer corner. You never want to put your longest length on the very outer corner, unless their eye can support it, but most people's do not. Now, if you put this longest length, let's say we put a 13 on the very outer corner just for the heck of it. What's going to happen is, because I do have these outer ones over here, they lay down and they droop the eye. This is why you do not want to put your longest length on the very outer corner. And this is what a lot of beginners struggle with when they're starting lash extensions. It's like, why are the lashes always droopy? It's because of your mapping. Your mapping does matter, and it matters based on the person's eye. It matters on the shape, and it also matters on what direction are their lashes growing.